The Purdue Boilermakers are 2-0. Where do they need to improve before they take on USC this Saturday?
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's a very exciting Monday because this past Saturday, the Purdue Boilermakers got it done at Ross-Ade at night and improved to 2-0 on the year. I'm your host for today. I am Nick Arvin. We got a fun episode. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So like I said, super exciting game. A little bit sketchy there at the beginning in that one, but the Boilermakers did show very resilient effort in that game. They came back and won that one 34-17. So then Boilermakers improved to 2-0 on the season. Barry Odom becomes the first Purdue head coach to be 2-0 to start his Purdue tenure since the year 1916. So over 100 years on that one. And later in the show, we'll talk about USC coming to town this Saturday, where Purdue needs to improve, because there are a lot of spots that I noticed, that everybody noticed, that Purdue needs to improve, especially going up against an offense like USC. And then we'll talk about some of the Big Ten teams. How did Big Ten play shape up this weekend? Where are the teams on Purdue's schedule? Kind of at 2 weeks into the season. But let's go ahead and jump right in and let's talk about Saturday's game. Purdue, SIU. It was a big one, FCS opponent, but Barry Odom talked all week last week about playing nameless football. SIU is an FCS opponent, but they are a good FCS opponent. They're in the best conference in FCS football. They're very well coached under Nick Hill, who's been there for 10 years. And overall, it's a good football team. They don't have the conference. They don't have the FBS accolades that other programs have, but it's a good football team. And honestly, I would say the SIU team that we saw Saturday was better than what we saw Week 1 against Ball State, and especially at that quarterback position. I think DJ Williams for SIU was a much better quarterback than what Purdue saw Week 1 with Khalil Kelly definitely passing the ball, because DJ Williams, he opened up, SIU gets the ball first, and he marches down the field. Throws for a touchdown, gets SIU on the board first, and I started to get a little bit anxious after that one. I know a lot of people did, because I didn't expect SIU to go in and score and take a lead early on in that game the way that they did. I talked on the show last week about how Purdue can't let this team hang around. They need to get ahead early, and they need to maintain that lead. And that's not something that we saw. We saw that DJ Williams was really able to control that offense early on in the first quarter. And Southern Illinois really kind of had a grasp on this game as it stood. So DJ Williams in that one, he throws for 202 yards, a touchdown, 6.1 average on his passes, and he was very good. I think that DJ Williams could really play in a power conference. I think he could play for almost any school in the nation. He was very talented, very impressed with what we saw with DJ Williams. But SIU, they score first, and then Purdue bounces right back. And guess who? Ryan Browne, Armad Branch. It strikes again for Purdue's first offensive drive, and they tie that one up. I was happy at times with where we saw Ryan Browne in this one. He made some throws, but not quite as consistent as we saw him against Ball State's defense. He threw an interception, kind of a bad interception, threw it into triple coverage, but it is what it is. You get the win. Ryan Browne, we'll talk a little bit more about him, but he hits Armad Branch, ties that game up, and then DJ Williams drives right back down the field and takes the lead once again for SIU. They go up 14-7, but after that, that was pretty much it. After that, Purdue showed a very resilient effort, kind of locked down, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think it was said that going to the later stages of the fourth quarter, after they gave up those 14 points, I think Purdue only gave up like 40 all-purpose yards or something crazy like that. That defense really stepped up after kind of what happened in the first quarter, those first couple drives. DJ Williams was really held in check. They were able to force him to go past his first read and then to try to make something happen. And the linebacker stepped up. Manny Powell had another great game. Taj Rael was very good. 7 tackles, I believe. And overall, the first couple drives were really tough. Purdue didn't look good at all, but it was a resilient effort that was showed. And that's kind of just where the result was. That's how you get the 34-17 victory. And you improved to 2-0. So not much more that I can say when you play the way that you did in the second half. It all works out. You get the win. Obviously, Barry Odom says this isn't the team. This isn't where we necessarily want them at, but you can say that all you want. You're going to have to get them where you want them soon because the USC Trojans come down to Ross-Ade next week. We'll talk about that here in our next segment. And there needs to be some improvement. We need to see the defensive side of the ball, especially because when you have a quarterback that has the dual threat capability that DJ Williams had this week, when you have the dual threat capability that we'll see a guy in Jayden Maiava have next week, you have to have a defense that's going to settle down and control that early. If not, you get behind and then who knows what happens. We see offenses a lot more explosive on Purdue's schedule this year. We've kind of had the 2 easy games, get them out of the way, but there's a lot bigger fish to fry on Purdue's schedule, and that defense is going to have to be good. They're going to have to be solid early if they want to continue to compete the way that they have done in the first 2 weeks. But on the offensive side of the ball, say what you want, but honestly, there was a lot to be excited about. We talked about how Devin Mockobee, he was good week 1, had over 100 all-purpose yards, but he really asserted himself on the ground in this one, and that's something that I really did want to see. Had 126 yards, 2 touchdowns, including that one in the Wildcat formation that we've seen Barry Odom really like to go to inside of about the 4-yard line, about the 3-yard line. We've seen that Wildcat formation, and Devin Mockobee was able to punch that in a couple times. But 126 yards on the ground. Really good game for Mock. And I really can't speak highly enough about how good this guy is. In week 1, they elected to pass the ball a lot more. They went play action early. Mockobee got an early carry. But Ryan Browne really did a lot of the work. And it was kind of opposite. Mockobee did a lot of the work against Southern Illinois. And then Ryan Browne kind of fed off what Mockobee was able to do. And I honestly think that's where Purdue is the best. The offense isn't going to be as explosive as they are when Ryan Browne's launching the ball down the field to Arvin Branch, but that's still going to open up, especially when you're able to get Devin Mockobee going early the way that they were able to do against Southern Illinois. That play action game is going to open up. And when you face better defenses going into Big Ten play, that's where you're going to be able to find your success because Ryan Browne's not just going to be able to throw the ball down the field against a USC, against a Illinois, against a Minnesota. That's just not realistic. You're going to have to open up that play action. You're going to have to run the ball with Mockobee early and then open up the passing game a little bit later on. And we saw a huge step towards that Saturday night. We saw that Mockobee was involved. He was solid, and he gets the dub, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. Great night for Devin Mockobee. And then Ryan Browne, he profited off of that. Like I said, not as good as he was week 1, but he does throw for 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, has that ugly interception. And he really was able to get it done to a variety of receivers. George Vernon, he has 3 receptions, 48 yards. He's really up and coming. I like him. Arvin Branch, only 2 receptions, but he did have that big touchdown. And then Nitro Tuggle had his first touchdown of the season. Michael Jackson wasn't really involved like he was in week 1, only 1 reception for 7 yards. But overall, we know what Ryan Browne is. We know he's a guy. Limit the turnovers. That's going to be huge going forward. You can't turn the ball over if you're Ryan Browne. You have to continue to make high IQ plays. We saw that throw. It didn't end up biting Purdue, but you can't make those against higher quality opponents. You cannot turn the ball over. Purdue doesn't have the margin of error in Big Ten play that other teams do. So when you turn the ball over, that's a recipe for losing. And Purdue, once again, Saturday, they did a good job of limiting penalty yards. That's something we saw in week 1. That's something that we saw in week 2. I'm really excited about that because whenever Barry Odom comes over to Purdue, he's really preached this disciplined approach to things. And so far, we've seen that. We have the turnover, but not such a big deal. And honestly, I'm more concerned about the penalty yards than I am about the turnovers, because I know that Ryan Browne's not going to make stupid throws a lot of the time, but that is something to be concerned about, is the penalty yards. And Purdue does a good job limiting them once again this week, and another recipe for success. So overall, not the best start for Purdue, not the best couple drives in that first quarter, but a resilient effort was shown. And 2-0, that's all you can hope for. Historic win for Purdue, historic win for Barry Odom. But Southern Illinois, that was a good opponent. But next week, you have a even better opponent, a team that just nearly got snubbed from the AP Top 25. It's going to be a huge game. Purdue are 21-point dogs as the line to open up today. We're talking USC coming to town next week. Ross-Ade, what that matchup means here next. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Well, SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at the checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best price. With no surprise fees, what you see is what you pay. Say you want to make it out to Ross-Ade. You can absolutely do that with our friends at Game Time. You can even make it out to Mackey this winter for the best prices with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. In our last segment, we talked about the success that Purdue found against Southern Illinois. It was a little bit rocky there for a bit. And then this next week, they're going to need to improve, because if you're rocky against SIU, you're going to be rocky against USC, because we know USC is one of the most explosive offenses in the nation. And this is going to be Purdue's first big test. When you look at it from an offseason perspective, we circled this game on the calendar from the start. Week 3 is a moment. It's a time at Ross-Ade at 2:30, 3:30 Eastern on CBS. It's an opportunity for you to be competitive. It's an opportunity for you to turn heads. This is a game that is so very exciting, but Purdue has a big hill to climb, because USC is even better than a lot of people expected. In the offseason, they play Georgia Southern Saturday, and honestly, this stat line is scary. Jayden Maiava, those are 412 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then those receivers are absolutely insane. Jacoby Lane, 91 yards on 3 receptions. Makai Lemon, who is their star receiver, 2 touchdowns, 158 yards, 4 receptions. So we know that offense is absolutely insane. That offense is terrifying for Purdue fans. That offense is terrifying for Barry Odom, for that defense. And that defense for Purdue is really going to have to step up. We saw that DJ Williams was able to really kind of get whatever he wanted in that first quarter against that defense Saturday night. And Jayden Maiava, he's an even better quarterback. He throws for 400 yards against Georgia Southern. He's a Heisman candidate. We know that Lincoln Riley's always churning out these explosive offenses, always churning out these Heisman candidate quarterbacks. And Jayden Maiava is just another breed in that lineage of guys. And I am nervous for this one. I'm going to be honest. I am nervous. I had a lot of excitement. I was kind of on the board that Purdue may be able to pull this upset going into the year. But with how good USC is, the only way that Purdue is going to be able to win this game is if they control the time of possession. That's going to be what's important. And that's why I've been so important on why Devin Mockobee has to get involved, why he needs to be the bell cow for this offense, and why this offense needs to run through Devin Mockobee, because you can't have 3 and outs against this team. You can't have incompletions. You need to get long drives. You need to burn clock, and you need your offense on the field longer than the time that USC's offense is going to be on the field, because USC's offense isn't going to be on the field long. They're explosive and they strike fast. They score points in a hurry. They scored 73 points week 1. And like I said, big game, 59 points against Georgia Southern. That offense is explosive. Obviously, they haven't tested it out against a Big Ten opponent like Purdue yet, but it's a scary offense, and that's to say the least. So you have to control the time of possession against a USC team. You need Devin Mockobee to get involved. You need to get him involved early. And then you need to open up the play action game. Eventually, once you break that defensive line down, who is revamped, that USC defensive line is a lot better than it was last year when they didn't have a great year. They kind of got ran all over. This year, it's going to be different. So not as much is going to be available for Mock. But Mock needs to find holes. He needs to cut, and he needs to find yardage where he can get it. Need to get these drives going. And then for Ryan Browne, when you open up that play action, that deep ball is not always going to be there like we've seen it the first 2 weeks. Armand Branch isn't going to be able to run a post route and get open all the way to the end zone. That's just not the reality of the USC defense that you're going up against. You have to play at the sticks. Get your tight ends involved. Get Michael Jackson III involved. We saw week 1. Whenever Ryan Browne needed to find a guy, Michael Jackson was there. We need to get back to that. He needs to be at the sticks. Get your tight ends involved. Nitro Tuggle, get him involved. Hopefully, Denylon Morissette will be back for this week 3 matchup. That'll be another guy that you can get involved. He wasn't involved the past 2 weeks, injured, but that's another guy that is talented in that receiving group. And then Armand Branch. That big hitter will open eventually. It's not going to be open to start the game. It may not be open as prevalent as we have seen it, but eventually they're going to sleep. Eventually the safeties are going to come down and bite. And that's when you hit that deep ball with Armand Branch. If you can have an explosive play, if you can control the time of possession, there is a world where Purdue can upset USC. I know that the line's 21 points. I know that USC are heavy favorites. I know that if Purdue wins this game, that Lincoln Riley will be on the hot seat, much like Kalen DeBoer, much like what we've seen in Florida after that loss to USF. But I think Purdue, there is an opportunity. It's not a big opportunity. I'm going to be honest. I am a Purdue homer, but I know how explosive that USC offense is. If you're going to compete, your best defense is a controlling offense. Control that time of possession, and that's going to be the key to success. On the defensive side of the ball, all you can do against that defense is play solid, high intensity. Don't commit penalties. We've seen that's been a good thing. We've seen that Purdue has been disciplined on the defensive side of the ball, not giving up many penalties, not holding, not giving up pass interference calls. They've been solid. Nothing I can really complain about, but just continuing to be solid, finishing tackles, playing 4 quarters of football. And then the last thing that I do want to cover, we talked about it. If you're able to win the turnover battle, that's going to be huge against USC. That's going to be key for beating this team. I'm going to be honest. USC has more talent on the field than Purdue has. So you have to win within the margins. You have to win that time of possession battle, and you have to win the turnover battle. Those are going to be the 2 keys if Purdue wants to be able to beat the strong USC offense. Turn them over. Force an interception off Jayden Maiava. He's been solid so far, but force an interception. Force a fumble. Win that turnover margin. Play smart football. Don't turn the ball over. Don't allow any more opportunities for that USC offense to kill you. That's just a non-negotiable. If you don't do that, you're not going to win the game. But if you can control the time of possession, if you cannot turn the ball over and win that turnover battle, there is a chance. So a lot to be excited about. 2:30, 3:30 Eastern at Ross-Ade. This is one to be excited about. This could be a huge upset. I can't wait. We'll talk more about that one. I think we're going to have Locked On USC host Mark Colkin here on the show to talk that one up a little bit later in the week. We'll see how that one plays out. Should be exciting. But for this last segment of the show, I want to talk about the Big Ten opponents Purdue's going to face this year, how that Big Ten slate played out Saturday. We'll talk about that here next. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. Just check out this sick hat that our friends over at the game sent me. So cool. I got this one and then another black retro hat. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code LOCKED ON, you will get your vintage hat just like this for $16.99. Head over to thegamecaps.com. That's thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code LOCKED ON for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. We talked Purdue against Southern Illinois Saturday. We talked where Purdue can improve, what they need to do, how to win between the margins against an explosive USC offense that's coming to Ross-Ade Saturday. But let's talk about some of these Big Ten matchups that happened over the weekend. A lot of excitement around college football, a couple upsets. We talked about it, USF rather. They win big over Florida. That was a big-time upset. But you know, a lot to be expected Friday. Northwestern, they take on Western Illinois. Not much to talk about in that one. Northwestern is on Purdue's schedule later in the year. That's going to be one that Purdue desperately needs to take advantage of. Northwestern is going to be towards the bottom of the Big Ten this year. That Northwestern is a team that Purdue will need to take advantage of later in the year if they want to make it to a bowl game. So Northwestern, they go in, play Western Illinois, and get it done. Coming off 4 interception game last week for Preston Stone, he bounces back with 245 yards, 3 touchdowns on the day en route to a 42-7 victory. And then Maryland, we won't face off against them, but they've been solid this year. Malik Washington's been good for them, star quarterback. They win 20-9 against Northern Illinois. And then Ohio State. This was a big game. Julian Sayin coming off a battle with Arch Manning in week 1. 306 yards, 4 touchdowns against Grambling. And Grambling's coach made a funny comment about how the bands were going to battle off earlier in the week, but ultimately Ohio State does get that one done 70-0. So Ohio State showing its strength, number 1 team in the country right now. Purdue will face off against them, I believe, in November towards the end of the season in that real tough stretch at the end of the year. Then Penn State, top 2 team in the nation and number 2 at that, take on Florida International University. Drew Aller really shows up, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns for a guy who's really kind of competing for his draft spot, competing for a Heisman spot, and competing to get his team back to the college football playoffs this year. James Franklin, he's coaching for everything. He wants to prove that he's a championship-worthy coach this year. He's wanting to prove just that he can really be a coach that can be in the competition. We've seen him win games in the regular season, but we haven't necessarily seen him win games when it matters. So Drew Aller is going to be pivotal to that team's success this year, but I'm really high on Penn State. I'd like to see Penn State duel off against Ohio State. I think those are the 2 best teams in the country right now, and that's a game I'm super excited for. And then Oregon, this is one that there was a lot of speculation going up into this one. Mike Gundy goes out, talks about how if Oklahoma State was able to spend the money that Oregon was, then they'd have a lot of success. Then Dan Lanning, he fires back, says, well, I think a lot of schools, they don't spend money because they want an excuse not to win. And well, he proved to be right because Oregon beats Oklahoma State. And this isn't one of these FCS opponents or low FBS opponents that teams face off against and dominate in a buy-in game. Oregon beat Oklahoma State 69-3. And this one was the craziest game, in my opinion, result-wise of the weekend, because Oregon really showed. We talk about Ohio State, we talk about Penn State, but Oregon's really trying to say that, hey, we're here to go. We're ready, and we're just right up there with Penn State. We're right up there with a team in Ohio State. And I think that Oregon really showed a lot in this matchup. I think that Oregon is here. I think that that's a team that is going to be on the lookout for. And then on that 12 noon slot, first game of the day on ESPN after College Game Day, Illinois and Duke. And this was one a lot of people got on Illinois early because in the first half, they weren't playing great football. At halftime is 14-13 Illinois, leading by 1, but in that second half, they took over. They outscored Duke in the second half 31-6, and they show off. Luke Altmaier has a solid game, not his best game of the year, but solid in a route to a 45-19 victory. We'll face off against Illinois following the bye week after the Notre Dame game, week 6, I believe. We saw last year that one was absolutely electric. Ryan Browne, Luke Altmaier going back and forth. I expect more of the same. I think that Illinois is a very good team this year, but honestly, after seeing that first half, I know that they kind of stepped on the gas, but I think that Illinois is a team that Purdue can compete with this year. That'll be one to look out for. We talked about upsets if you're not able to get it done against USC. Maybe you look towards Illinois as that first big statement win of the Barry Odom era. Exciting game. Michigan, Oklahoma in Norman. That was one that I projected Oklahoma to get done. I just didn't think that Bryce Underwood had enough experience under his belt to get it done in a ruckus environment at night in Norman. And I was proved to be correct because John Mateer, he really balls out, 270 yards, a touchdown, looked composed, and honestly, Bryce Underwood did not look composed. Oklahoma gets that one done 24-13. Michigan's going to look to regroup a little bit. Oklahoma looks good, SEC team, and they are shining this year. Iowa State, Iowa couldn't get it done, and people are burning Gronkowski jerseys in Iowa. He did not have a good game at all in that one. Throws for like 83 yards from Mark Gronkowski in that one, and they fall to in-state rivals Iowa State 16-13. Minnesota gets a huge win, 66-0 against Northwestern State. We'll face off against them. Indiana shines after a rough showing against Old Dominion previous week, 56-9. Francisco Mendoza looks a lot better. Against Kennesaw State, he throws for 245 yards and 4 touchdowns in that one. Middle Tennessee State facing off against Wisconsin. We won't see Wisconsin this year, but they struggled against Miami of Ohio. Their offense wasn't looking very good, to be honest. And then O'Neal steps in against Middle Tennessee State and goes off 283 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wisconsin scores 42 points, outscores Middle Tennessee by 32. Wisconsin starting to look good. Their offense started to look solid, although Middle Tennessee State is not a good team. They lost to FCS opponent Austin Peay week 1. Middle Tennessee is not a great opponent, but Wisconsin and Luke Fickell, they look better than they did week 1. And then Rutgers, they take care of Miami of Ohio a lot better than the way that Wisconsin did week 1. Rutgers and Greg Schiano, they're really trying to build that program up to kind of the success that he had in his first tenure at Rutgers during the Big East era. We'll see if that happens. That is another game that I want to circle. Purdue's going to take them on. There's a stretch where it's Minnesota, Rutgers, and Northwestern. Those are 3 games that if you want any chance of making it to a bowl game, Purdue's schedule is so tough that you have to win at least 2, if not all 3 of those games. Those are games that have to be won. I like Purdue's chances against Rutgers. I haven't been overly impressed with the way that Rutgers has played this year, but they had a good game against Miami of Ohio. Nebraska gets it done in big fashion against Akron, and then we talked the USC game. They get it done 59-20 against Georgia Southern. That offense showed with Jayden Maiava putting up 412 passing yards. Michigan State was in a tough game with Boston College. They pulled that one out 42-40 in a barn burner at the end. And then Purdue, of course, they get it done against Southern Illinois. Not as pretty as you would have hoped, but they get it done anyway. And then this is the one that I really did want to recap on this little segment. UNLV, they take on UCLA. And last week I said, or 2 weeks back, UNLV played a week 0 game. And I said that Barry Odom was the biggest winner of week 0 because UNLV looked like crap under Dan Mullen. They did not look good at all. And it just showed that this program was better when Barry Odom was there. But I may have to eat crow on this one. I still think that Barry Odom's UNLV squad looked a lot better, and I think that UCLA looks terrible. But UNLV dominated Nico in that one. They really held him 29 for 41, decent completions percentage. Those are 255, but wasn't able to get it done. Seals it with a interception at the end. Nico has not looked good at UCLA. UCLA has not looked good. They're 0-2 on the year, and they lose one to UNLV on the road. And then we finish it off. Washington, I've said it. Rank Washington. Washington's good. Purdue will face off against Washington. Jonah Coleman, what a guy. Great running back. 15 carries, 111 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Holy cow. 5 touchdowns on the day. Rank Washington. We got a big week at Purdue coming here on Locked On Boilermakers. We got Mark Colkin coming on the show sometime this week. I don't know a date on that one yet, but that'll be a fun discourse. Purdue, USC, looking that one. On Friday, we'll have that pregame show coming for you guys. Purdue, USC. I'm so excited. We'll see if Purdue can pull that outside. We'll talk about that one all week long. We'll have some basketball coverage, including a big visit that happened this weekend for Purdue basketball. Stay tuned all week here on Locked On Boilermakers. We have the best content possible for you guys daily, every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's something so unique that we're doing here. And it's not just this, because it's another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present to you College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. He leads that conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. Thank you guys for joining me. Once again, huge win for Purdue. 2-0, big win for Barry Odom. And as always, boiler up, hammer down.